anam tapaschaiva bhavanani manishninam. Translation: acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Text 6. Etanyapi tu karmani sangam tyaktva phalani cha kartavyaniti me partha nishchitam atam uttamam. Translation together: all these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Text 7. Niyatasya tu sanyasa karmano no papadyate mohatasya parityagyas tamasa parikirtitaha. Translation: prescribed duties should never be renounced. If, by illusion, one gives up his prescribed duties, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Text 8. Dukham ityeva yat karma kaya klesha bayat yajat sakritva yajasam tyagam naiva tyaga phalam labhet. Translation: anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear is said to be in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. Text 9. Karyam ityeva yat karma niyatam kriyate arjuna sangam tyaktva phalam chaiva satyaga satviko mataha. Translation: but he who performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done and renounces all attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is of the nature of goodness, O Arjuna. Text 10. Nadveshtya kushalam karma kushale nanushajjate tyagi sattva samavishto madhavichena samshayaha. Translation: those who are situated in the mode of goodness, who neither hate inauspicious work nor are attached to auspicious work, have no doubts about work. Text 11. Nahi deha brita shakyam tyaktum karmanye shishata yastu karma phalatyagi satyagiti abhidhiyate. Translation: it is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities. Therefore, it is said that he who renounces the fruits of action is one who has truly renounced. Text 12. Anishtam ishtam mishram cha trividham karmana phalam bhavatyaginam pretya natu sanyasinam kvachit. Translation: for one who is not renounced, the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such results to suffer or enjoy. Text 13 through 14. Panchaitani mahabaho karanani nibodhame sankhye kritante proktani siddhaye sarva karmanam adishtanam tata kartam karanam cha pritagvidham vividhascha pritak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. Translation: O mighty armed Arjuna, learn from me of the 5 factors which bring about the accomplishment of all action. These are declared in Sankhya philosophy to be the place of action, the performer, the senses, the endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. Text 15. Sharira van mano biryat karma prarabhate nara nyayam va viparitam va panchaite tashyaketavaha. Translation: whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. And those are the 11 verses for today. And I'll go back and read text 5, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder, Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Text 5. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Purport: the yogis should perform acts for the advancement of human society. There are many purificatory processes for advancing a human being to spiritual life. The marriage ceremony, for example, is considered to be one of these sacrifices. It is called Vivaha Yajna. Should a sannyasi who is in the renounced order of life and who has given up his family relations encourage the marriage ceremony? The Lord says here that any sacrifice which is meant for human welfare should never be given up. Vivaha Yajna, the marriage ceremony, is meant to regulate the human mind to become peaceful for spiritual advancement. For most men, this Vivaha Yajna should be encouraged even by persons in the renounced order of life. Sannyasis should never associate with women, but that does not mean that one who is in the lower stages of life, a young man, should not accept a wife in the marriage ceremony. All prescribed sacrifices are meant for achieving the Supreme Lord. Therefore, in the lower stages, they should not be given up. Similarly, charity is for the purification of the heart. If charity is given to suitable persons, as described previously, it leads one to advanced spiritual life. And if anyone has any comments or questions throughout tonight's class, feel free to please raise your hand and bring those up. So Arjuna, we're in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and Arjuna, out of fear, he wanted to quit. He wanted to put his weapons down. But Krishna says over and over again, no, you don't stop your duty, your given duty to fight. Just do everything you can do for Krishna. You don't have to give everything up and renounce the world, but you should take your work and give it to Krishna and do it with Krishna in mind. And that's one of the biggest lessons of the Bhagavad Gita, as it is that we do everything. You don't have to give everything up. He says, renunciation or what should I do? Should I just go to the forest and, I'm supposed to fight my relatives and friends and cousins? And Krishna says they are already dead. Actually, the battle is already determined, and they say, it is said here that one, even no matter what these acts, if it's performed in Krishna consciousness, then that is the supreme goal, is to perform your acts with Krishna in mind, with Krishna in the center. Because so many in the material world, so many people trying to put themselves in the center and just live selfishly and enjoy food, but enjoy it selfishly for themselves. And if one is enjoying things for oneself, if one is thinking that they are the doer and that they are the enjoyer, then they are accruing karma, right? That's how we get karma, is by thinking that we're the doer and that we're the enjoyer and that we're in the center. And so we get karma, we get results, either in this lifetime or the next. We get results, we get karma. But if one acts in Krishna consciousness, then one is transcending the 3 modes of nature. One is transcending the modes, because it is known even in the mode of goodness, you are under these modes. You're still kind of getting these ups and downs and this good and bad, beautiful and ugly, all these dualities that we want to try to transcend some of these mundane ideas. And so vivaha yagya. So yeah, marriage is a wonderful thing, and Prabhupada would marry people on stage, and we need that to propagate this movement for many hundreds of years. Obviously, we need children in Krishna consciousness, and we need couples are naturally going to get married, and so we want them to do it with Krishna consciousness in mind. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. So it's about restraint. It's about balance. It's about renunciation. It's about giving up some of the things that we used to do, or that society tells us that we should or could do. And we've got, all of society needs to reframe some of their mental concoctions, and the advertisers and the society in general, the people in school, encourage us. They're people without knowledge always, but they're encouraging us to go a certain direction. But it's so nice to have found this, an actual direction that's positive for all of humankind, and it's actually a way forward. And so, yes, marry and don't necessarily quit your job, but do it with, you're thinking about Krishna, and you're chanting your rounds, and you're following the four regulative principles, and you're donating a little sum to the temple, and then the temple is bringing so many people in and educating them on Krishna consciousness. So it's this beautiful cycle, and the temple really knows how to do the proper welfare work for all humanity. In fact, we wish above the government, above the president, there was a panel of Vaishnavas, and that would be so nice. We ultimately need that. We need some good advice from the experts, and that expert knowledge is contained here in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and also the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Puranas and the Upanishads and all the Vedas. And you can read this over and over again and keep getting more things out of it, and seeing it from slightly different angle, and learning the words, and purifying oneself, purifying the heart, chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It purifies the heart, and it's a way to really directly connect with the Supreme. And so we chant on beads, we chant on the Tulsi beads, and when you say the mantra 108 times, that's considered one round. And we all try to chant as much as we can every day. And it's this blissful thing. It's a blissful, through vibration, it fixes the consciousness. And so early in the morning, ideally, but there's no hard and fast rules for chanting. If you prefer to chant at night, then you do that. But ideally in the morning, we're training our consciousness. We're getting it on the right grooves. We're getting it on the right track. And then you'll see your days be very blissful and productive and harmonious when you do these things. It's called the Maha Mantra because it's the great mantra. It really is. It's above all other mantras, and that is Krishna's opinion, and his opinion is higher than all of our opinions. In the Bhagavad Gita, when he says, that is my final opinion, we have to take that very seriously. That's the best opinion. Chanting, it's such a nice thing. So sometimes someone will say, I have to chant my rounds, or I need to chant my rounds, and I think sometimes maybe we want to reframe it a little bit into, because it's really we're lucky to get to chant, to chant these rounds and to try to serve Sri Krishna. We're the lucky ones, so let's not forget that. And so it's really this blissful, it's the best part of our day, it's the nicest part of our day. And yeah, it's a little intimidating sometimes to chant a certain amount of rounds, but it is really the luckiest part of our day, and it's a chance to really connect with Krishna and fix ourselves for the rest of the day. And so really enjoy it, really, because intention, Krishna sees intention. He knows our inner thoughts. He knows how we're thinking about things. He knows we're doing the activity, but he also knows how we feel when we're doing the activity. That's why it's said, do things for Krishna. And that direct communication, that direct communion is so wonderful. And so thinking, I'm so lucky to get to chant today. Thank you, Krishna, for this another day in Krishna consciousness, where I try to be more and more Krishna conscious. And, sometimes you can make it scientific. You can actually, some people like to walk around and chant. Some people like to sit down. And you can make it scientific. You can actually, time it. You say, well, how long did it take me to sit down and chant around? How long did it take me when I was pacing? So there's little things you can make some observations like that. But I'm always hungry for that next. I always try to be hungry for that next bead. I'm kind of pushing forward throughout the round and always kind of forward pushing when we chant our rounds. And then text 6. All these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Purport. Although all sacrifices are purifying, one should not expect any result by such performances. In other words, all sacrifices which are meant for material advancement in life should be given up. But sacrifices that purify one's existence and elevate one to the spiritual plane should not be stopped. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also, it is said that any activity which leads to devotional service to the Lord should be accepted. That is the highest criterion of religion. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice, or charity which will help him in the discharge of devotional service to the Lord. So things are actually either helping us become more spiritual, more Krishna consciousness, more Krishna conscious, or they're holding us down. And I'm always so inspired by so many people here, and they always want more and more. They're greedy for spiritual advancement in a way. Not that we should be greedy, but if there's one thing we can be greedy for, it's spiritual advancement and more service to Krishna. And it's never quite enough. You keep climbing the mountain, but you never quite get to the top of the mountain, right? But we learn to enjoy the climbing process and learn, if you're rock climbing, one thing you can't do is slip, right? That can be devastating, a slip on a rock climb. And so we have careful footing, careful hands, strong fingers, good association, and we just keep climbing, and we enjoy the climbing process. But it's hard, this idea of activities without result, that's hard for us to always do. It's not so easy. But over time, with practice, we learn to just, let me act. And then the results, that's Krishna's, that's his field. I can't control the results. He's the master chess player with 1,000,000 moves going on all at once. And so just act in Krishna consciousness, and then your job is done. Then you can let it go. He wants us to let it go, to let go of the results. Because that's when we try to control. That's when we try to say, I'm in the center. I wish I would have done this or that. And he's saying, no, you just act and then you let it go. This actually helped me years ago. It was about 6 to 9 months before I came to the temple for the first time. But I was interested in so many Vedic things and mantras and fire sacrifices and so many things. But I read the Gita, and I found one of the main lessons I got out of it was to not worry about the results, to act, and then it's out of your hands, and so you let it go. Because I'm a musician, and I was releasing an album, a jazz album, years ago, and I was kind of intimidated by it. I was kind of nervous. I wanted it to be perfect, But then I read the Bhagavad Gita just a few months before it came out, and it helped me a lot. It helped me say, okay, you've done everything you can do. Just put it. Krishna, is saying just put it out and let it go. So there was a tremendous weight off of my shoulders to not have to worry so much about every result. It's like a parent. A parent, raises a child for so many years, but eventually they probably go away on to college or school, and they have to know that their teachings, that they did the best they could, and the child will always be there, but there has to be some letting go, right? Hare Krishna? Oh, sorry. Yes, please.
This verse was given practical application during Prabhupada's time. He was visiting Nellore, India, and some people there had invited him to come, and they wanted to give a parcel of land to him or to the temple, the Krishna conscious movement, for use. So in the gift contract, however, they put some conditions. The conditions were that if ISKCON did not complete the building of the project by a certain time, then the land or whatever was built would go back to another institution which was named. And so there were several conditions like this. And Prabhupada told them this verse, you should, acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So he wanted to teach them, the people who wanted to donate, that they should give purely without having any material attachments to the result. They should give unconditionally. And then it would be a worthwhile activity. Otherwise, to not give in that way would mean it was given out of passion or ignorance. And acts that are in goodness, or even better, transcendental, are very desirable. And one can give his activities to Krishna in the sense that Krishna gives so many instructions in Bhagavad Gita. He recommends that we perform sacrifice and charity in a way that is without expectation of result, without expecting profit or gain, these types of things, so that we can conduct our activities under this type of guidance. For example, he explains what type of food. Food, if it's prepared and eaten in the mode of ignorance, then that's not healthy. That's not going to be beneficial for the person materially or spiritually. But if one eats food that is first offered for sacrifice to Vishnu or Krishna, then one gets purified and it's healthy. So all good things come when one follows these instructions of Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita is not just a interesting book with some philosophy. It's practical and it's meant to be employed throughout one's life in all activities. What would Krishna want me to do? How would Krishna want me to deal with it? Should I tell the truth? Should I not tell the truth? Should I try to harm someone? Should I not try to harm someone? These things are explained in Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you, Gurudev. There's a story, Krishna's story of when he, the lady with the fruit, he had seen people exchange rice for some fruit. And so he was very young, and with his little hands, he got as much rice as he could get, and he was going to go to the fruit lady and trade the rice for some fruit. But, as he was walking along, so much of the rice spilled out to where there wasn't much rice by the time he got there. But she saw him with his sweet attitude, and she loaded him up with fruits, for just a small amount of rice. And so he walks away, and she looked back at her basket, and it was empty now from the fruits that were supposed to be empty from all the fruits being given away, but it was full of jewels. And so when you make a few steps towards Krishna, he makes many steps towards you. And so just a little bit goes a long way in Krishna consciousness. So we have to be very positive with ourselves and say, hey, I'm getting better, I'm learning, I'm climbing the mountain. I'm gonna get back on track, or whatever it is, or I'm gonna go even deeper into the books this week, or it is said in the Bhagavad Gita that one can tell a lot about what mode of nature one is under by the foods that one eats, by observing their food choices, and whether they're ignorance, passion, or goodness. And so we offer all of our foodstuffs to Krishna, and then we only eat that prasad, the remnants. And so many people in ISKCON have just been eating prasad for so long. And other cultures, other religions, they have some nice idea of some praying sometimes, but it's not always so regulated. You'll see them maybe say a prayer before a few meals a year, but what about every piece of food? What about everything like that? Everything should be offered, and in a humble state is going to be very nice. And so the tongue is the most voracious to control, the hardest to control. And so if we can control our tongue a little bit like that, that's a good start. So much progress can be made even through food and eating these transcendental foodstuffs. But you'll see people, think about all the things we used to do too, and even my dad, who's a spiritual teacher, a Christian Sunday school teacher and author, and he, sometimes, Sometimes there's people over I've seen in the past, and they just start eating, and it's like, no, before you eat, you should definitely say thank you and say some gratitude towards God. And you'll see, we used to see people at the ice cream place, and they do little free samples. So, oh, free sample this, free sample this. They're not thinking like that. They're not thinking along those terms. This is, and going on to text 7 here. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If by illusion one gives up his prescribed duties, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So here's 3 verses where the first one is speaking of ignorance, and then text 8 will speak of passion, and text 9 will speak of goodness. So this is text 7, speaking of ignorance. If one gives up his prescribed duties, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport. Work for material satisfaction must be given up. But activities which promote one to spiritual activity, like cooking for the Supreme Lord and offering the food to the Lord and then accepting the food, are recommended. It is said that a person in the renounced order of life should not cook for himself. Cooking for oneself is prohibited, but cooking for the Supreme Lord is not prohibited. Similarly, a sannyasi may perform a marriage ceremony to help his disciple in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. If one renounces such activities, it is to be understood that he is acting in the mode of darkness. And so, is sannyas, tyaga means renunciation. Arjuna is kind of saying, is sannyas and tyaga the same or different? And Krishna's opinion is that the renounced order of life and renunciation of fruits of work are exactly the same. Srila Prabhupada even translated both words as renunciation. Sannyas here is defined as renunciation, and tyaga is renunciation as well. So that is very nice. Text 8, translation. This is speaking of passion. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear is said to be in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. That's a wonderful term, the elevation of renunciation. I always love that. Purport. One who is in Krishna consciousness should not give up earning money out of fear that he is performing fruitive activities. If by working one can engage his money in Krishna consciousness, or if by rising early in the morning one can advance his transcendental Krishna consciousness, one should not desist out of fear or because such activities are considered troublesome. Such renunciation is in the mode of passion. The result of passionate work is always miserable. Even if a person renounces work in that spirit, he never gets the result of renunciation. Text 9. But he who performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done and renounces all attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is of the nature of goodness, O Arjuna. So you'll see, around this time, you'll see harvesting going on. By the way, when we perform our work as a matter of duty, one gets knowledge. So if you do it out of duty, you get knowledge, you get something back. But you see this, when they're harvesting the corn, think about how many things have to happen for the corn to successfully, the seed has to be sown in the proper spot and the proper time. By the way, some of these families have got this land for many generations, and if they didn't tend to their land, the trees would grow up so quickly. So the land has been taken care of for many generations, and the corn has to be planted at the right time, the right seed, and then it grows, hopefully with good conditions, hopefully no tornadoes or big storms like that, and then it has to be harvested at just the right time. There's usually like a window of time, and it has to be harvested at just the right time. and then it has to be prepared and everything, and then eventually it makes it to the prasadam table, and then it gets taken, and then so it's really about checks and balances and credits and debits too. Healthy eating is a little bit about credits and debits, because, and life is to some extent making sure, balancing your credits and debits. You know, if I eat too much if I eat a lot one week, but I don't expend that energy, because food is really for energy, right? So if I eat a lot, but I don't expend that energy or digest it properly, then it's like, it's too much on that side, and too much on the debit side, and then the next week, and it can really build up over the weeks. So we have to know how to eat the balanced amount that is required for our energy to be at its highest level, so we can work and act in Krishna consciousness. And then if one eats not enough, then they may not have enough energy, and they may be lethargic and tired. So it's really a balance. And there was a nice story that Radhanath Swami tells about, and this is really about the strength of a team, of a good team, or the strength and unity that we can have. He tells the story about being in the redwood forest in California and seeing these huge trees, the biggest trees, right, in the world. They're very old. They can be 1,000, 2,000 years old. And so he was with an associate, and they were kind of keeping to themselves, but then they saw like a tour group come through. And he happened to overhear, he couldn't help but want to listen to the tour guide. And he said, these trees are really amazing, because you would think their roots go down very deep, but these trees, the roots don't go down so deep. It's kind of like rocky, sandy soil. So what is their secret for longevity and to grow so tall? And these trees, when the roots go down a little bit under the ground, they find each other, and then they intertwine. So all the roots of these big redwood trees are connected beneath the surface by the roots. And so as they start to grow, the roots start to go out, and then they eventually find another root, and they latch on. Even the younger trees, of course, search out, and then they connect to the group. So that just goes to show how we may not have the strongest foundations always, but if we can grab hold of each other's roots, we can all subsist very nicely. Teamwork, you know. Sometimes we hear that gosh, we're all so different. We normally wouldn't be friends out there in the real world, right? It's like we're also, but also we have so much. I have to see the other side. I see the similarity. I see how similar we all are, because we are all the ones that kind of left. You know, we left our families to some extent and we left our old friend groups because they didn't have. We knew there was something missing there, and we'll always, of course, love, and remember, and still have ongoing relationships sometimes with our families and things like that. But we wholeheartedly knew there was something missing, and then luckily we found ISKCON through Srila Prabhupada's mercy and through the Vaishnav's mercy. And we found it. And so there's almost nowhere else in the world for us except here. So, I mean, we have so much in common to have found this path and to know its supremacy. And we just want to share it with other people. We just want to share that. Because it's so beautiful. And whether we get if we're, distributing books, whether we get a yes or a no, it's not so important, but because Krishna is ordaining things. but we just love to be out there and and giving Krishna consciousness. But there, you'll find yourself sometimes just like unstoppable almost. When Krishna's on your side, you're really unstoppable. And because they deserve the book. Really, the idea is everyone should walk away with a book. Who's the person that doesn't need a book, and if they say no, it's just a matter of getting them to see it from a different perspective, a quick paradigm shift to say, yeah, you actually need this book. This is a one-time chance. You need this book in your library. This is going to be a wonderful addition to your library, and and it becomes a no-brainer at a certain point. And so everyone deserves a book, even if they say no. It's okay to give them one more try, give them a second chance. What was that word? I didn't hear that. Is that I didn't? Yes. You just can't. They need it so much. And also in this time of autumn, you see all these cycles are beautiful. The autumn leaves can become so beautiful, and that's kind of, the leaves are dying, but they're going to be reborn the next season. But there's beauty in all of these stages. So seeing the beauty in things is so important. Yeah, sometimes even myself, when I'm talking to someone, I'm thinking, oh, I'm waiting for the perfect time to bring them the book, or maybe next time will be the perfect time. And I just really want to get that thought out of my head that there is no perfect time, or there is no next time with people. You either get them the book in that moment or you don't. And so people want the book. They're waiting for you to ask them. They're waiting for you to give them the book. Just remember that deep down they want to get the book. It's just a matter of getting on some sort of same page. And even it is said, side note, that to be morose in work, that's the mode of ignorance. So our attitude while we're working is important, and our attitude is so important for each other, to lift each other up and try to lift each other up, and just you want people to be happy in Krishna consciousness. You want them to be not having a difficult time. We all want each other to have not a horribly difficult time. We all want to give each other a pathway to success, and every day we try to do that. I think that's about all the time we have for today. But thank you so much. Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.